The anime starts by introducing us to the main character, Ikuragane. He is an F-rank blazer who is known as the World One. It is explained that a blazer is a unique being capable of manifesting their soul into a weapon and controlling abilities with magical power. Those blazers who are approved by the international organization are called Magic Knights, and Iki aspires to become one. One day, after completing his training and arriving at his dorm, Iki is amazed to discover a stunning girl in striking underwear. Of course, she doesn't react well, but before she can yell, Iki tries to make it right by removing his clothes to level things out. This, unsurprisingly, worsens the situation. The girl screams and slaps him hard. Unfortunately for her, this girl is Stella Vermilion, the second princess of the Vermilion Empire, who was admitted to the Heigan Academy for Knights in Tokyo with the highest score ever. It has often been said that he is a remarkably talented knight and the most powerful, famously known as the Crimson Princess. Following this, we see Iki in the office of headmistress Kurono Shinguhi. She tells him that Heigan Academy boasts one of the most impressive track records among all the night schools throughout Japan. At the 7-Star Sword Art Festival, which determines the strongest student knight, the representatives from their school have been victorious nearly every year. However, the past few years haven't been favorable for them. Kurono explains that she assumed the position of principal to rebuild the school. She complains about Iki's inappropriate behavior, mentioning that spying on a girl while she's changing is bad enough. But the fact that he also removed his own clothes suggests it wasn't just an accident. Iki offers an apologetic apology, explaining that at the time, he believed it was a gentlemanly gesture to be on equal footing. Kurono simply states that, in this situation, as the good gentleman he aspires to be, he must indeed take responsibility for his actions. Stella then enters the office, and without wasting any time, Iki offers his apologies to her, accepting whatever punishment she decides to impose on him. Somewhat impressed, Stella acknowledges that he is quite chivalrous. She was considering turning this into an international issue, but given his spirit, she intends to respond generously. Iki feels relieved to hear that. But then Estella tells him she will only forgive him if he takes his own life. He becomes visibly upset, exclaiming that he can't be serious, as he cannot pay with his life for something so minor. Upon hearing this last part, Estella's aura changes completely, and the director decides to vanish from the scene, leaving him to his fate. Estella then sets herself ablaze, preparing to reduce him to ashes with her own hands for sneaking into her room and disgracing her body. To see her naked with an indecent look on her face. Iki tries to reason with her and admits that he was indeed looking at her, but that's only because she's so beautiful that he couldn't stop looking at her. At that moment, Estella's flames suddenly go out in shock and her face completely reddens, now acting very nervous. Iki also clarifies that she was in his room, and Estella thinks she is just another former 2000, until the headmistress returns and informs them that from today onwards, they will be roommates. They both get upset by this, and Iki notes that roommates should be of the same level. He questions why Stella, an A rank, shares a room with him, an F rank who will repeat the course. Stella is surprised, so Iki explains that her only superpower is minimal physical enhancement, and her magical power is just a tenth of the average. Kurono mentions that all his other skills are also at the lowest level, and the nickname he has earned is Words One, known as the weakest man in this academy. There is truly no one else quite as inferior as Iki, and no one as superior as Estella. This is precisely why they are roommates, and if they are unhappy with it, they have the option to leave the school. Estelle still cannot accept this situation and refuses to allow him to be her roommate. Seeing that they continue to argue, Kurono suggests that determining fate with the sword is the true path of the knight. Therefore, they should let their skills speak for themselves. They can engage in a mock battle, and the winner will set the rules for their room. Iki agrees to these conditions, but Estelle reminds him that he is merely an F-rank knight who will have to repeat the course, so she believes there is no way he can win, to a rank A. He insists nonetheless, explaining that in a battle, you can never be sure of the outcome until you give it a try. Besides, he's been putting in a lot of effort. Stella chooses to accept, but she clarifies that if that's the deal, they won't just be competing for the room's rules anymore. Instead, the loser will have to obey the winner for the rest of his life. No matter how humiliating it is, he must become the slave who follows orders like a dog. Observing the princess's determination, Iki finds himself with no alternative but to relent, so they soon get ready for the mock battle. Stella continues to reflect on Iki's words when he mentioned her efforts, and she recalls the moment her mother told her she didn't need to become a knight if it meant enduring such hardships. Nonetheless, being merely a child, Stella responded that a small nation like hers requires a powerful magical knight, vowing to learn to control that power. In order to achieve that, she is willing to work as hard as needed, so now she is determined to defeat Iki. Meanwhile, Iki is also getting ready to win, despite Kurono's warning that Estella is quite strong. He tells her that she must eventually defeat Estella anyway, since winning the 7-Star Sword Art Festival is essential. If she manages to win, she will be able to graduate, even if her skill levels are not very high. Estella finds him in the arena where they'll face off. Seeing his confidence, she asks if he believes hard work can beat talent. Iki says he hopes so, which reminds Estella of the battlefield, where even the strongest men regretted not beating talent with hard work. This gives her a bitter feeling, as if they thought she didn't work hard. Even so, Stella chooses not to comment, and the mock battle starts soon. Kurono explains it's a battle where they don't get hurt physically, but instead drain each other's strength. Iki summons his Intetsu device, and Stella follows, summoning her Levitain. She attacks first, and seeing Iki note it down, she quickly praises his decision, since her Dragon Breath's fire is 3,000 degrees Celsius. So, if he were to receive it directly, he would find himself in significant trouble. Iki usually manages to dodge it most of the time, which leads Stella to recognize that he is quite skilled at evading. However, he explains to her that he isn't really that skilled, as he can barely manage to dodge it. When confronted with the sword technique she has perfected over time, Iki admits to her that she is not just naturally talented, acknowledging that she has put in an incredible amount of hard work. This revelation clearly takes him by surprise, but Stella warns him that seeing through her sword technique is not as easy as he might think. However, Iki asserts that he has already figured her out, and promptly replicates her technique to launch an attack, catching her off guard. Observing her bewilderment, Iki elaborates that for a lengthy period, no one was willing to teach him anything, compelling him to become adept in such matters. By tracing the origin of things and arriving at the truth, one can potentially understand everything. This is his technique with the blade steel sword. Stella then makes the decision to attempt a feint, but she is taken aback when Iki remarks that her swordplay is becoming sluggish, successfully stopping her just in time. As a result, Iki is able to strike her with his sword. However, everyone is astonished to realize that this did not inflict any harm on Stella. He mentions to her that it seems she was aware that his Intetsu was incapable of hurting her, yet she still opted for a sword with swords. Stella confirms this by explaining that she did so in order to outmatch him with her sword skills, making it clear that she is not merely a person with talent. She admits that the sole reason she has managed to gain the upper hand in this battle is due to her magical ability, and with that, she will defeat him. Stella then lunges with her entire magical form at Iki, and at the very last moment, he uses Itoshura. She is surprised when he dodges her attack, noticing that he has become faster and his magical power also grows stronger. 2001. Iki clarifies that he is not getting stronger, but is using everything he has, concentrating all his life energy in one min to then expel it. It is the noble art he has created. In a matter of seconds, he manages to hit Stella with his sword, draining all his physical strength and winning the fight. Soon after, Stella wakes up in the infirmary, and Kurono explains the technique Iki uses. She notes that he is far more exhausted than she is just from using Itoshura, a technique that can only be used once per day. Stella then asks him for an explanation, as it seems impossible for someone like Iki to be a rank F. Kurono clarifies that the ranks are based solely on the skills of someone like Blazer. However, actual combat ability, sword skill, and physical movements are not evaluated by. There is currently no system that can evaluate Ikki. Estelle still doesn't understand that they see him as a failure, and Kurono explains that there are many complicated situations. But if anything she can say is that they unfairly took away Ikki's opportunities over and over again. But he kept believing in himself and never stopped trying to improve. When Estella finally returns to her room, she finds Ikki sleeping, and her curiosity gets her into a situation that is easy to misunderstand. But from that moment on, she decides to apologize to him for not recognizing his true self. Ikki then reminds her of their agreement, as she is now meant to be his slave. After a lot of protesting, Stella resigns herself, wanting to uphold her promise to maintain her honor. So, she asks him to give her any command he desires, even if it's something inappropriate. Ikki laughs at this, and the first command he gives her is to be his roommate, as he wishes to get to know her better. Embarrassed, he accepts her, clarifying it's just an order, not his desire. They spend more time together. One day, she sees Ikki happier. He says it's because his younger sister goes to school, making Estella suspicious. She asks if they're not blood-related, but Ikki clarifies they are, confused by her question. After some time, both of them head to class where we encounter teacher Yuri Oriki. She reminds them of what the principal said. Until last year, the school chose representatives based solely on their ability. However, starting this year, there will be a competition among students. Those who wish to participate will compete, and the top 6 winners will become the representatives of the Yusen school. Altogether, each person will have 10 matches, with the assumption being that they will have a match every 3 days. Yuri encourages the students to participate, but during the middle of the class, she suddenly collapses after vomiting blood, which disturbs all the students greatly. Later, Ikki and Stella visit her at the hospital, where Yuri explains that she vomits 1 liter of blood every day. She tells them that she got into this school because of Yuri, who accepted her. However, the teacher reassures her that it was truly her own ability that got her admitted, also mentioning that the previous year had been quite unfortunate. Shortly after, Stella asks him what he meant by that statement, and he explains that he couldn't attend classes because, once he was admitted, there was no set standard to gauge his abilities. Just as he is about to continue, a girl named Kagami Kusakabe suddenly rushes toward him. She exclaims that she has been his biggest fan ever since she witnessed his battle the other day. She tells him she's considering starting a journalism club and wants him to be featured on the front page of the first issue. Therefore, she wants to conduct an interview with him as thoroughly as she can. Ikki tries to shake it off when Estella becomes jealous, but just before he can approach her, his sister, Shizuku Kurogane, finds him. In front of all the students, she kisses him on the lips, saying she missed him greatly. Estella, clearly upset, asks what he is doing. However, Shizuku calmly explains that it's normal for a brother and sister who share a strong bond to do such things. She also mentions that it's a common greeting in some countries, but Estella exclaims to her that in his country siblings don't kiss like that. He immediately pulls Shizuku away from Ikki, so the two begin to argue, and in the middle of this scandal, he ends up confessing that Ikki is his mistress and she is his servant. Kagami takes notes for her school paper and Shizuku loses her cool, deciding to summon her Yoshigure device. Estella plays along, starting a fight in no time, but in the end they both end up cleaning the bathrooms as a punishment, since the use of devices other than in areas where they are not allowed to use them is a punishment. Allowed is forbidden, so they will have to clean all 27 toilets throughout the entire school for a whole week. 2009, even after finishing cleaning the bathrooms, both girls keep arguing. Shizuku exclaims that she could never understand how her brother feels, as she would never know what it's like for Ikki to be treated as if he didn't exist. This surprises Stella, and Shizuku realizes she spoke out of turn, so she decides to leave, saying there's nothing she can do with them. When Shizuku heads to her room, she encounters her new roommate, Yusend Arazuan Nagi, who is more commonly known as Alice. Meanwhile, Estella chooses to inquire with Ikki about Shizuku's remarks, and even though it's a somewhat sad story, he opts to share it. He talks about a samurai named Ryoma Kurogane, the hero who guided Japan to victory in the last World War. Iki reveals that this man is his grandfather and is the kind of person he strives to emulate. For many generations, the Kurogane family has been known for producing exceptionally brilliant blazers. They are considered a distinguished family. However, he did not fit into this mold, so his parents and relatives acted as if he was invisible. At family gatherings, there was never a place set for him, leaving him isolated, merely listening to others enjoying themselves. One particular year, during the New Year's celebration, he reached his breaking point and decided to leave home, despite having no destination in mind. However, when he finally realized it, a snowstorm began, and he ended up getting lost. Yusan was just a boy at that time, and he was preparing himself for the possibility of dying. But just at that very moment, the samurai Ryoma appeared right in front of him. Ryoma asked him if he felt frustrated by being the weakest, and advised him to hold on to that feeling, as it is evidence that he hasn't given up on himself yet. Ryoma taught him not to give up, explaining that he lives within his limits and should avoid becoming such a dull man later on. If he doesn't give up, he can be anything. Iki tells Estella those words saved him, so he decided to be like Ryoma. When he meets others like him, he wants to tell them those words, but he must get stronger. That's why he wanted to be king, but no one taught him, so he practiced alone. He had a strong desire to become the king, yet nobody was willing to teach him anything, so he constantly practiced by himself. Eventually, he was accepted into this school. However, the people from Kurogane were not fond of the idea of someone they considered a failure, like him, becoming the king. They exerted pressure on the school. The basic requirements for attending class were set by the school principal at that time, specifically to prevent him from graduating. Fortunately, the current principal is now Kurana. Nevertheless, he is aware that this type of harassment is likely to persist. Yet, he has no intention of giving up, and Estella understands this very well. She shares with him that she has had a similar feeling. When we go back to Shizuku, she begins to tell Alice about her life story, even though they had just met. She confesses why she loves her brother, explaining that she wants to give him all the love she never received at home. To her surprise, Alice quickly understands her, deducing that Shizuku doesn't like people, and that her family relationships worsened this. She knows it well, because he met someone like her a long time ago. Alice lets him know that the two of them will have a long relationship, so he can talk to her about anything whenever he wants, something Shizuku appreciates. Days pass, and Stella continues to train alongside Iki, getting along well with him, even though they are opposites. One day she tries to ask him out on a date, but she gets so nervous that she misses her chance, and Shizuku asks him out first. Feeling resigned, she decides to go with him, and they meet Shizuku and Alice at a shopping mall. Alice introduces himself to Iki, who finds it strange to hear his name. Alice then explains that while he is biologically a man, his heart is truly that of a maiden. After the four spend the day together, Iki shares with Alice that he is surprised Shizuku opened up to him. Alice explains that Shizuku is very sensitive and shy around new people, and she isn't the type to easily make friends with others, which is why she wanted to thank him sincerely for being their friend. Alice smiles warmly and mentions that he is exactly as Shizuku had described him. Just then, they launch an attack on the bathroom, shooting everywhere in an attempt to eliminate them. The pair of attackers eventually leave when they realize the bathroom is empty. Shortly after, Alice and Iki emerge from a shadow. Alice then comments that they probably took over the mall, so she invites Iki to join her and find out. He explains that his device is called Darkness Hermit, which allows him to control the shadows and also move in them. Thanks to this, they manage to reach the place where they are holding the hostages after talking to the principal, who gives them special permission to use their devices outside the school. On the other hand, Stella and Shizuku hide among the hostages as normal citizens, trying not to attract attention in order to execute a plan. However, seeing Jakin, one of the assailants, attempt to shoot a child, Stella steps in to protect him, exposing his identity. Jakin shoots Stella relentlessly, but is stopped by his boss, Bishop, who scolds him for assaulting the hostages. At this, Jagin explains that the boy threw ice cream at him, for which Bisho sympathizes, saying that a child who doesn't know discipline is the parent's responsibility. As a result, Bishop aims a gun at the boy's mother, prompting Estella to attack impulsively. The criminal activates his device, the Judgment Ring, enabling him to strike Estella with equal force. Due to her bravery, Bishop offers Estella a chance to save the mother and child, stating she must apologize on their behalf by kneeling naked on the ground. Iki rages from his hiding place, but Alice stops him, warning that they will put the hostages in danger if they come out. Now, with nerves of steel, Stella takes off her clothes, leaving her in her underwear, but Bishop makes it clear to her that she must take everything off. Iki lunges to intervene, but Alice stops him again using Shadow Bin, a technique that allows her to bind Iki's shadow so that it won't move. Why Alice tells him that Shizuku's kindness in controlling magic power is the best in the school, so he must rely on her. For without anyone noticing, she can create a magical barrier, just as she said. Just at that moment, Shizuku creates a barrier that protects all the hostages, so Bishu gives the order to eliminate everyone. Finally, Iki goes on the attack, using Itoshura to move quickly. 2001 in no time completely cuts off Bishop's hand, and says that he is being generous, considering what he did to Estella. After they finish with everyone, Iki rushes to embrace Stella, and Shizuku returns his clothes, commenting that his actions were rash, yet she still finds them admirable. Iki then collapses from the effects of Itoshura. At that moment, a woman suddenly appears and takes another woman hostage, demanding Bishu's release. However, before anyone can react, someone swiftly attacks the criminals and neutralizes them in just a few seconds. The individual accountable for this situation is a student by the name of Shizuya Kirihara, who claims all the accolades for the case, staying as the hero. Once everything concludes, Iki comes forward to express his gratitude, but Shizuya responds rather unpleasantly, questioning if he's still pursuing the knight's path with his weak power Usand. Stella attempts to defend him, but this merely amuses Shizuya, who then tells her that Iki is a coward who fled because he was too frightened to confront him in a battle. Iki does not deny this, and Shizuya asks him to check his mail. Iki is then surprised to discover that the opponent for his first battle is none other than Shizuya, who represented the school last year. As days pass, Iki dedicates his time to studying Shizuya's technique, known as the invisible area, which has the ability to make his appearance, presence, and even smell impossible to detect, serving as a perfect camouflage. This is just one of the many features of his Oborosuki device, which enables him to secure victory from a safe distance, by what they call him the Hunter. Alice one day decides to talk to Iki, who tells her that last year he was targeted by Shizuya. Shizuya challenged him to have a duel, saying that if he does it, the teachers will recognize his ability. Iki refused, but Shizuya attacked him without warning, pushing him to the limit to fight. Even so, he did not respond to her provocations or defend himself, as he thought that any action he took to evade her attacks could be taken as a form of fighting. Iki did nothing, and just because of that, he was not punished. Hearing his story, Alice tells him that he is very used to being hurt. After all, strength is tolerance, and it is an act of stress accumulation. That's why the mind always screams before reaching its limit in the form of anger, sadness, irritation, and various forms. But he tolerates much more. That's why he can no longer hear those screams, and that's why he can always keep that calm smile. Iki responds by saying he doesn't understand, so Alice concludes the conversation by expressing her hope that someday someone will demonstrate to him what she means. On the day of the fight, Iki is noticeably quite distracted, yet when the school system prompts him to confirm the fight, he accepts without any hesitation. At that moment, Nene Saikyo shows up, thrilled to witness Iki's determination, since many others are typically hesitant at that stage. He identifies her as the demonic princess of the Kokai League, who is also a part-time instructor and has been acquainted with the director for quite some time. Nene confirms this by showing a bit of interest in Iki. However, Kurono suddenly shows up to pull her back to her duties. When Iki's battle against Shizuya starts, Shizuya quickly uses invisible area and vanishes into the arena. Initially, Ikki is able to evade the attacks, but eventually, some of the attacks injure him, disrupting his plans. After constantly being attacked and unable to retaliate, the students begin to mock Ikki, chanting together to call him the Words One. Amidst all the voices filled with disdain, Stella ignites in flames and quiets them, demanding that they stop mocking her favorite knight. Everyone falls silent, and she questions Ikki on why he appears so miserable, exclaiming that she prefers it when he holds his head high and keeps his eyes up. Hearing her, Ikki rises to take a swing, thanking Estella. He uses Ito Shura, analyzing Shisuya's attack pattern. He parries a deadly attack with eyes closed. Ikki locates Shisuya in seconds, and Nene, starting the battle, laughs delightedly. She herself clarifies that Ikki utilized perfect vision, successfully deducing Shizuya's thought process by perceiving through her caliber. Ikki boldly challenges Shisuya, stating that he will defeat her greatest strength with his own greatest weakness. Shisuya doesn't even have the chance to respond, and she can only frantically flee, eventually being cornered until she finally concedes. Following his victory, Ikki collapses from the exertion of using Itoshura, and when he awakens in the hospital bed, he apologizes to Estella for Ikki is concerned about her. Estella blushes and attempts to deny that she was worried, but at that moment, she is taken aback when Ikki admits that he has feelings for her and expresses happiness about having met her. Nervously, she explains that when she said she liked him, she was actually referring to his lifestyle and the inspiration he provides. He responds that he understands that, but he truly felt the need to express it now. Stella then comments that she finds it unfair for him to be so straightforward and quickly requests him to close his eyes. Ikki complies, expecting some kind of hit, but instead, he just receives a kiss on the cheek. She admits that she enjoys it too, so Ikki gives her a hug, sharing a nice moment where they both decide to rise to the top of the Knights to fight once more. Eventually, the two become a couple, and over time, Ikki keeps winning more battles, slowly clearing his name. One day, Kagami and her friends ask Ikki to train them, and it's something he simply can't refuse. Stella is obviously envious of all the attention he is receiving from numerous girls, and the boys in his class don't appear pleased either. When they return to the dorm, Stella remarks that it's quite generous of him, considering those girls he agreed to assist are also skilled blazers. So, if he teaches them how to wield the sword, he'll be making future competitors. Ikki just responds that he enjoys that idea, because if it turns out that way, then it will be beneficial to teach them and eventually compete against them. He tells her again that he is really generous about it, and then suddenly blushes when they gaze into each other's eyes. Somewhat nervously, she mentions that it's been 2 weeks since they began dating, so it's about time they do something that boyfriends and girlfriends usually do. Despite the courage it took for her to say those words, Stella's illusion fades away when she notices that Ikki isn't listening to her, as he has already fallen asleep. The next day, Ikki trains the girls but is attacked by classmates unhappy with the situation. Ikki defeats them easily without his device. They admit jealousy and ask for his training too. He agrees, giving them the same training as the girls. The group grows as more students join to learn. She even agrees to teach Shizuku, which makes Stella feel jealous, leading her to ask why he doesn't teach her as well. Ikki, clearly caught off guard by this question, hesitates a bit before answering, causing Stella to storm off in anger. When they return to the dormitories, Ikki explains to Stella that she has already surpassed the level he is capable of teaching. Additionally, their techniques and styles are completely different, so his teaching might negatively impact her sword skills. Therefore, what he truly desires is for her to become someone who is beyond what she could ever imagine. Shortly after that, Ikki resumes training Shizuku and the other girls at the pool. Shizuku joins them happily, just to be with him, because he is occupied with training the others. She decides to take a moment to relax by herself, until Kagami comes up to her and inquires about how far her relationship with Ikki has progressed. This surprises her, and initially, Estella tries to deny it. But Kagami skillfully persuades her to admit that Ikki is her boyfriend. Still, Kagami promises not to tell anyone, as that is her pride as a journalist, and she wants her friend's romance to go well. Despite this, she is still curious, so she asks him again how far they have come. He confesses to her that they haven't even kissed, admitting that he would like them to do more couple things. Wanting to help her, Kagami decides to find Ikki so they can talk alone, and the two manage to understand each other after arguing. Despite all the challenges, that fight culminates in the much-anticipated kiss they were both eagerly awaiting, and they walk back home hand in hand. A few days later, Ikki confronts Renamaru, an executive of the student council renowned for his speed, faster than the speed of sound. Meanwhile, Stella confronts Saohi and Kazuchi, another formidable member of the student council, who attacks with her full strength. However, despite these challenges, both Ikki and Stella successfully defeat the council members in just a matter of seconds. After the fight concludes, they gather with the others. Stella becomes furious when she notices Shizuku attempting to flirt with Nikki 2009. Despite her anger, she finds herself unable to intervene. Meanwhile, Alice chooses to draw attention to an individual concealed behind a tree. At this moment, Ikki remarks that he became aware some time ago that someone had been tailing him for an entire week. Bearing this in mind, they make the decision to approach her in order to discover her intentions. However, the girl becomes so alarmed that she loses her balance and falls directly into a fountain. Soon after, she changes her clothes and introduces herself as Ayase Ayatsuhi, a third-year student. She explains that she is embarrassed when she looks boys in the eye, so she never had the courage to approach. Upon hearing her name, Ikki asks Yatsuhi if she is related to Kaido, and she replies that he is her father. This makes him excited, as Kaido's sword technique really is the best. Stella is unsure what to say, so Shizuku tells her that Kaito Ayatsuhi is a swordsman called the Last Samurai. He won every tournament and achieved glory in the Japanese sword world. He is a true master, but not famous, because he isn't a blazer. Ikki excitedly admits that he studied sword techniques as a child, watching Kaito Ayatsuhi's videos. He hasn't heard his name lately, so he asks Ayase what she is doing now. However, Ayase's expression darkens, and she tells him about an accident that occurred during a match, which led to his hospitalization. Ikki apologizes for bringing up such a sensitive topic, but he is reassured that it pleases him to meet someone strong who appreciates his father's style. He also admits that he is eager to learn from him and has been diligently practicing his technique, yet he hasn't been able to master it. Hearing that, Ikki decides to train with her the next day, and after fighting for a while, he realizes a few things. He asks her if the reason she thinks she hasn't improved is because she feels she hasn't reached Kaido's level. Ayase confirms this, confessing that no matter what she does, she can't move as fast as her father, even though she has his moves. Ikki then explains to her that this is the problem, as imitating Kaido is what prevents her from improving. After all, she and Kaido are of different genders, meaning their body structures and the way their 1,000 muscles function are not the same. Ayase feels excited to finally grasp this concept, and Ikki points out that she has an idea on how to improve her current movements. The initial step Ikki takes is to adjust Ayase's posture, although he needs to touch her legs in a somewhat intimate manner to accomplish this. Estella and Shizuku are taken aback by this sight, and Ayase blushes intensely, but Ikki focuses on making the corrections, his initial form despite the tense moment. You stand with that new posture. Everyone notices that Ayase's movements are much faster, which she is very grateful for. Upon finishing, he apologizes for touching her, but Ayase assures her that it's okay, explaining that her hands are just like her father's, so that made her happy. Seeing all this interaction, Estella asks Shizuku if she's not jealous seeing them together. But Shizuku says no. After all, Ikki is simply, he gave her a lesson in swordsmanship, and Ayase wasn't flirting with him. Besides, as long as her brother is content, he'll be okay, even if she isn't his partner. Stella is surprised to hear this, remarking that Ayase is much more mature than she initially thought, especially considering her small stature. In the following days, Stella also assists Yase with training, and to express her gratitude, she invites them to dinner. However, during dinner, Kuraudo Kurashiki, a student from another academy, arrives with his group too. He attempts to launch an attack on Yase. In response, Ikki tries to protect her by managing the situation calmly and peacefully. However, Kuraudo unexpectedly smashes a bottle over her head. Stella, furious, catches fire in her anger. Despite bleeding, Iki reassures her that it was merely an accident. Her hand just slipped, so there's no reason to fight. Even when Kuraudo spits in her face, Iki remains unfazed and doesn't react, leading Kuraudo to decide to leave, remarking that it's not worth fighting someone as cowardly as him. After the group departs, Stella remains quite upset and questions him and Iki about why he allowed them to treat him in such a manner. He explains that avoiding it would only escalate the situation, and he prefers to avoid trouble in a place like this. Moreover, he sensed that Kuraudo is truly strong. Just then, Misohi Utakata, the vice president of the student council, shows up and remarks that he was attacked by Kuraudo Kurashiki, known as the Sword Eater. He is the ace of Danro Academy, and he tends to annoy anyone he doesn't particularly like. Misohi explains that Iki's actions were justified because Kuraudo was one of the top 8 participants in last year's Seven Swords Festival. Kanata Totokubara, who is another member of the council, arrives to add that it is indeed true that Ishiki acted violently, but if she hadn't, she would have needed to defeat every one of them. Misohi then makes the decision to heal Iki's injuries, and once they leave the area, Ayase expresses her concern for him. However, when Stella asks him who those people were, Ayase fails to answer. Iki assures her that she doesn't have to say if she doesn't want to, but reminds her that if she is in trouble, then they can help her as her friends. Ayase is about to speak, but before she can say anything, both she and Iki get a notification informing them that the two of them will be the next to face 2009. Seeing that, Ayase can do nothing but run away, and the next day, he decides not to attend his classes. Alice mentions that if Ayase's goal is to participate in the 7-Star Festival, then she absolutely cannot afford to lose any fights in the selection matches. However, she realizes she has no chance of winning against him, so she might consider making a move before that. Iki agrees with this and shows her a message he received from Ayase, who invites him to meet her on the rooftop of one of the buildings in the school until 3:00 a.m. Alice mentions it's obviously a trap, but Iki responds that Ayase isn't someone who would play unfairly, so he decides to go see her. When they finally meet, Ayase tells him that she requested the meeting because she has something to ask him. She heard that he and Estella made a vow to compete against each other at the 7-Star Festival, and she is curious about what he plans to do if he ends up facing someone he has never been able to defeat before. Iki replies that she would fight fair with everything she has, even if she can't win. There's nothing else she can do but fight with everything she has. Yaya is told that she does not think so, as fairness does not produce a meaningless result. But she would, no matter what she must do, defeat him. That said, she summons her device and in one motion cuts through the rooftop fence, leaping off the building. In a state of shock, Iki reacts swiftly and uses Ito Shura to reach her just in time, barely managing to save her. Before they hit the ground, Iki kicks off against the building, using his immense strength to destroy it, and then they both fall safely into the water below. Once they are safe, he questions her about why she did that, but Ayase is simply delighted to reveal that she used Itoshura, her ace up her sleeve. Iki then comes to the realization that this was her plan all along, since she can only use it once every day. Her battle against him has already begun in 10H, which means she lacks the time needed to fully recover. It's the only way she might have a chance to win. Iki questions her motives, asking why she is so desperate to win, as she is setting aside her pride as a knight and bringing shame to the spirit of Ayatsugi. Ayase simply replies that she doesn't care what he says, as she will defeat him no matter what. And the next morning, Iki wakes up in the hospital and is immediately questioned by the headmistress, who suspects him of being responsible for the damage to the building. Iki takes responsibility for the damage, accepting any punishment, but makes it clear that he cannot tell what happened. He makes the decision to inquire with the headmistress regarding Ayase and Kurono. He states that about 2 years ago, his father, Kaito Ayatsuki, lost the ability to wield a sword. This was due to losing a one-on-one duel when his dojo was challenged. He had fought against the Sword Eater, Kuraudo Kurashiki. As per the rules they had established prior to the duel, the land and the building owned by the Ayatsugi family were transferred to Kuraudo. Since that time, Kaito has remained unconscious for 2 whole years. After listening to his story, Iki makes the decision to fight with all his strength, no matter what, as he believes it would be disrespectful to the Ayatsuhi family to act otherwise. The moment the battle starts, Iki is quickly injured, and comes to the realization that Ayase has likely activated the traps that had been set up in that area beforehand. His sword slices through the remnants left in the space, drawing in the air around him rapidly and creating a whirlwind. Iki is aware that the battlefield is likely filled with traps, yet he chooses to press on and continue fighting. Observing the confrontation, Alice remarks that setting traps prior to the battle is a violation of the rules. Therefore, once this is discovered, the battle will be halted, and Iki will emerge victorious. Alice seizes the opportunity that no one has yet detected her traps to launch an attack. After inflicting a serious wound on Iki, she moves in, but unexpectedly, he manages to block her attack using the hilt of his sword and smiles as she confidently states that she is the person she believes she was. In this scene, we see that prior to the confrontation, Iki had informed Yuri that Ayase would break the rules, but he asked them to intentionally overlook it because he wanted to trust her. He decided to use this final opportunity to understand her true motives. Now, in the present, Iki tells Ayase that her sword technique, her movements, and her breathing are completely disorganized. She is not just ignoring what he taught her, but also what she already knows how to do. No matter how hard she tries to create an evil person within herself, she cannot deceive her own soul. When her mind is lost, her sword skills can't reach their true potential, showing she has more pride than she admits. Ayase continues to deny this, insisting that ideals without results are useless, so she will win to reclaim what she lost. Iki then replies that there is just one thing he can do and makes a promise to restore Ayase's pride with his utmost strength. He employs his perfect vision to evade all the traps, and swiftly, he manages to win the duel cleanly. Yashua concedes defeat, and Iki asks him to allow him to help her regain what she lost, emphasizing that he doesn't need any reasons to assist a friend, even though he feels awful about all she did. There, she sees the image of her father when Iki extends his hand to assist her, and her eyes fill with tears as she finally asks him to help her. A few days later, Ayase guides them through the forest to his dojo. On the way, he tells them that Kuraudo is incredibly strong. 2 years ago, when Kuraudo came to destroy the dojo, he didn't use his device. He fought with just his sword, without any skills, and even then, he managed to defeat Ayase's father. On that day, everything felt like a terrible nightmare for Ayase. However, her father refused to let anyone step in during the fight, which led to him collapsing at the end, and consequently losing the dojo. From that point on, Ayase has blamed herself, believing that if she had been able to fight in her father's stead at that crucial moment, none of this would have occurred. When she arrives at the dojo, she finds it utterly vandalized and strewn with garbage, presenting a particularly bitter sight for Ayase. Iki doesn't take long to enter. He asks a group of students who appear to be delinquents to guide him to Kuraudo. None of them respond well to his request, so Iki eventually reaches Kuraudo on his own, soon after, and challenges him to a duel. He clearly states that he is there on behalf of Ayase, and intends to reclaim this dojo. Kuraudo warns him that he must first show that he has what it takes to face him. So, Iki presents him with the IDs of his comrades whom he defeated before locating him. This makes Kuraudo agree without hesitation, so they both summon their devices. Iki finds himself cornered very quickly, and Kuraudo goes on to explain that his device can transform into any form and can renew itself against any sword. That's why he calls it a sword eater, as no one can withstand something like that. Despite this challenge, Iki uses his perfect vision to evade his attacks, and successfully comprehends Kuraudo's attack style. However, Kuraudo just intensifies his efforts, attacking with even more ferocity. Iki stumbles, and it's only due to this that he's saved from an attack that might have been fatal. He understands that this is the real national strength, and it genuinely excites him, allowing him to take pleasure in the intense battle. Because of this realization and Stella's encouraging words, Ayachi comes to the conclusion that his father probably enjoyed that fight from 2 years ago, and must have felt immense happiness as a warrior. In tears, she realizes that she was not proud at all back then, and did not understand the feelings of people who fight. Before she can let go of her tears, both girls are surprised to see Kuraudo start to exhaust himself in a decisive attack. Iki manages to do what Ayase's father could not, using the secret Tenemuho technique, the marrow of Ayatsuhi style. Ayase wonders how he could know that technique, and Stella explains that it was thanks to blade steel, something that Iki is likely to used while training her. Why? With that, she manages to win the duel and regain the dojo, so Kuraudo leaves the place, warning that the continuation of this will be at the 7-Star Festival. Ayase apologizes to Iki for making him go through all this, saying that she could not understand neither her father nor the fact of living as a warrior, so it is impossible for her to carry the technique to Yatsuhi. Iki replies that this is not true, because the fact that he won today was because she learned without fail the sword of Kaito Yusand, what allowed her to execute Tenemuho. Therefore, there is no one who understands Kaito better than her, who is the ultimate heir of the last samurai. Ayase is moved and in tears thanks him, making it clear that she must still become stronger to proudly say that she is the heir. Later on, Ayase admits to the selection committee that she cheated in her fight with Iki, leading to her disqualification from the rankings and a 10-day suspension. Despite this, Iki and Estella are pleased to hear that Kaito has regained consciousness and reunited with his daughter. After some time, the matches resume, and Iki has already achieved 12 consecutive victories. Therefore, the headmistress decides to grant both him and Stella a week's break, inviting them on an exciting trip, since they are excelling at the top of the first-year students. She sends them to a school training lodge, where she expects them to train as much as they possibly can. Stella, although very excited, finds that as soon as they arrive at the lodge, they encounter members of the student council. This encounter only serves to ignite their competitive spirit, and the very first thing Stella does is challenge Ren to a badminton duel, and that apparently doesn't really understand what they do in that place, and soon enough, he and Estella are informed about the fact that they have to clean the training area. Next week, the selected individuals will be doing their practices there, so they must ensure it is clean beforehand. The student council would not have been able to manage it by themselves, so the headmistress assigned them to assist. After completing the cleaning, Misohai reports that there are still a few tasks left to finish, but they will leave those for the president to handle. Stella is asked by the council, who will arrive a day late to the site. Stella wants to visit a waterfall she saw before arriving, so they advise her to go before the sun sets, as it is only 1h from the site. On the way, Iki worries that Stella can't keep up and mentions the fact that she only ate 2 plates of food today, even though she always eats at least 7. Stella blushes, explaining that she wasn't hungry because she hadn't exerted herself physically. He suggests that they go back to the dorm, but she refuses, insisting that they continue, as they are only now both managing to be alone. Despite trying to keep up, the day grows darker, and Estella's condition only worsens, so she confesses that she has been feeling heavy for a while now. This surprises her, as she has never had a cold before, and now she has all the symptoms all at once, so her body does not respond. The best thing would be to return to the residence, but suddenly it starts to rain, so Iki and Estella take shelter in a cabin they found in the woods. He notices that Estella has a fever, so he recommends that she take off her wet clothes before her condition worsens. Seeing that she hesitates, he decides to take off her clothes so that she doesn't have to feel embarrassed, as they will be the same. Stella smiles at this, as it reminds him of the first time they met, when he tried to do the same. Recalling that he had already seen her in her underwear, she reluctantly agrees to undress. However, she is so weak that she struggles to even do that herself. Due to this, Iki steps in to help her undress, all the while attempting to keep his composure, although he finds it to be a nearly impossible task. After she removes all her clothes, Estella still doesn't feel well, so she requests Iki to take off her bra, as it's making it hard for her to breathe comfortably. Quite upset, Iki unbuttons Stella's bra in one motion and immediately covers her with a blanket, which she is grateful for. She apologizes for bothering him like that, as she notices that she has caused him a lot of trouble down there. Realizing this, Iki blushes, trying to tell her that it's not what he thinks and is very apologetic about it. Stella clarifies to him that he doesn't have to apologize, as it's not something that bothers him and in fact flatters him. After a few moments of silence, Stella decides to ask him if he would like to do it with her, which leaves him extremely shocked. Despite this, She appears to be quite certain, so Iki responds seriously, explaining that it's something he can't answer at the moment. He clarifies that he does like her and wishes to express it proudly. But if he were to have such a relationship with her now, he wouldn't be able to communicate normally with his family or his parents, even though she may seem boring to him. He is reluctant to go back on his word and thus apologizes, politely declining her offer. Estella responds by saying that she is perfectly fine with it and is actually quite happy to see that he is taking her seriously, which she deeply appreciates. Just at that very moment, Iki receives a phone call, leaving Stella in a thoughtful state as she comes to the realization that she might be a pervert. Meanwhile, we observe that Shizuku has returned home because her mother had sent her a letter. However, shortly thereafter, she finds out that it was actually her father, Itsuki Kurogane, who had persuaded her mother to write that letter, who calls her over for a discussion. He tells her that he just wanted to check on how she was doing. However, he already knows through his contacts that she is doing very well academically, and he expresses his pride in her achievements. Shizuku becomes upset and tells him that her brother has also remained undefeated in all his battles, questioning whether he is proud of him as well, or if he simply doesn't care. Her father responds that this isn't true, but Shizuku accuses him of lying and walks away. Back at the cabin where Iki and Stella are staying, a strange noise suddenly echoes from outside, prompting him to go out and investigate the source. Unexpectedly, a massive stone golem emerges, and in a single powerful move, it demolishes the entire hut. Fortunately, Iki reacts swiftly enough to rescue Stella just in time, placing her in a secure location while he confronts and destroys the golem. However, immediately after he destroys it, the golem reconstructs itself, and in a short period, numerous other golems begin to appear that surround Stella. At that moment, Nene appears and rescues Stella, running at a speed even faster than sound. Saiho also makes his presence known, assisting Iki in destroying a group of golems with a single powerful blow. Nene leaves Stella with Iki, and then Misohai arrives to explain that a blazer is likely the one controlling those golems. It has to be a psychic, a blazer capable of using threads of thought to animate objects. Some say guys can control them miles away. Then, the student council president, Tuka Tudu, top 4 in last year's 7 Swords Festival and strongest warrior in Hagoon School, arrives. She explains that golems are magically tied to the blazer, so pulling the strings reveals it in seconds. Toka eliminates all the golems with an electric attack through the threads of the carrier, who falls from the shock, though it's clear someone else is in control. Back to Shizuku, we witness her childhood, discovering she had a talent for being a blazer. Her whims were indulged, and right was twisted by force, mistakes pardoned by force. It made Shizuku truly fed up with this recognition as human, and it even made her fed up with being human herself. However, someone told her that what was wrong was indeed wrong, and she never bowed down to any force. That person was Iki. At that very moment, Shizuku decided that no matter what happened, she would follow her brother. Yet, she knew nothing about the discriminatory treatment and environment he faced, nor the cold loneliness he had to endure. Returning to the present, after coming back from their trip, Iki and Stella recount to Alice what transpired. They explain that, after rescuing him, the student committee members attempted to uncover something. However, they couldn't find any clues, only observing how immensely powerful Tuka Tudu, the student committee president, truly is. This discovery leaves them somewhat worried, as they have just learned that she will be up against Shizuku in the fight scheduled for tomorrow. Shizuku is a user of water magic, so typically, lightning, which is what Tuka uses, would be her biggest weakness. However, Alice explains that this isn't true for Shizuku. Thanks to her exceptionally high-quality water particles, she can form incredibly strong barriers that are nearly impenetrable, and her defensive capabilities are almost unmatched. Considering this, even lightning wouldn't be able to penetrate her defenses. Despite knowing this, Iki admits that he is still concerned. He hopes for Shizuku to win, but he is uneasy about it happening to him. Nothing. Shortly after, Stella decides to have a conversation with Shizuku to check if she's okay. Shizuku responds by saying that she will be up against a different opponent than those she has encountered before. so she's feeling a bit nervous. However, she assures that this won't impact her performance in the fight. Despite this reassurance, Stella informs her that Iki is concerned about her, and then she awkwardly departs. Afterward, Shizuku speaks with Alice, mentioning that if it were Stella facing Tuka, Iki wouldn't be worried about her, but he would allow her to leave, considering her a warrior capable of battling at his level. This realization makes her understand that she is not yet strong enough for her brother to truly accept her. Thus, she must become even stronger to be able to support Iki. Consequently, in her upcoming fight tomorrow, she plans to demonstrate her readiness by defeating the student committee president, ensuring her brother will finally accept her. When the moment for the battle arrives, both Shizuku and Tuka approach each other with great caution, each waiting for the perfect moment the precise moment to launch their attack. Once they make the decision to begin, both unleash their full power, leaving all the spectators in awe of the intense battle. Tuka successfully lands an attack on Shizuku, only to discover it was merely a water clone. Despite this, Shizuku sustains some damage, marking the first successful strike by Tuka's Raikiri. This situation puts Shizuku in a difficult position, as he struggles to understand how Tuka can make his moves vanish like that. Savoie 2009. As a result of this, Shizuku's reactions to Tuka's attacks begin to worsen. Iki realizes that Shizuku is not watching her, and it is something he has witnessed before. Just then, Nene explains that it is a technique called Nikuashi, which brings together a jumping and breathing technique. Humans, like machines, cannot process everything they see in detail, because if they did, the brain would collapse. This particular technique renders the individual's presence almost subliminal to the opponent. As a result, while Shizuku can visually perceive Tuka, she is unaware that she is actually seeing her. Even though her eyes detect Tuka's movements, her brain dismisses it as irrelevant information and fails to process it. Consequently, Shizuku cannot respond until the precise moment. Kurono confirms this by stating that Tuka is familiar with this technique, solely because he shared the same instructor as Nene, Nango to Naharu, who is known as the god of war Nango. Estella tries to encourage Shizuku from the audience, but her words don't lift Shizuku's spirits. Yet, Shizuku is resolved to win and reach the Seven Swords Festival. When they both attack again, they captivate the audience with a series of powerful strikes. Shizuku uses her clones once more and employs a technique to fill the area with magical mist, allowing her to move freely. With this move, he manages to corner Tuka, planning to strike her with a powerful water sword. However, at the very last second, just before delivering the blow, Tuka uses her Raikiri to disperse the mist. Shizuku is utterly shocked. A moment later, she collapses to the ground, losing the battle. Savoie 2009. Even so, Iki realized that Shizuku's final attack was not a desperate attempt. It was an attack aimed at victory, and Tuka cut her off with all that. Once Shizuku wakes Alice up, Iki and Stella join her. But Alice requests some time alone because she's really exhausted. Iki and Stella leave her, but Alice remains with Shizuku. Before Shizuku can object, Alice hugs her, acknowledging her efforts. She reassures Shizuku that her brother watched over her until the end and promised to protect her. Even though Shizuku dislikes losing, Alice tells her that he doesn't need to make her strong anymore. Upon hearing that, Shizuku breaks down and cries in Alice's arms, finally letting go of everything she had been holding inside. After some time, Iki is called to the principal's office. The principal asks him if he recalls the member of the International Warrior Committee from back home. Iki responds that he saw this person multiple times while at home. He mentions that this individual is a branch of the Kurogane family and works for his father. Kurono notes that it appears he is the head of the Japanese committee, and is attempting to gather information about the school. Hagun. She is somewhat aware of Itsuki Kurogane, who is Iki's father, and she doesn't believe that he would resort to cowardly tricks just to bother him. Iki responds by saying that home is likely acting on its own, since that person has always held a strong dislike for him. He is concerned that the school might suffer because of him, but Kurogane quickly tells him not to underestimate her, emphasizing that safeguarding the students is the principal's responsibility. With that, Iki departs feeling calmer, and shortly after, he is summoned by the student council. He decides to go along with Estella. There, Tuka formally introduces herself to them, as they hadn't had the opportunity to do so before. However, she turns out to be quite different from what they had imagined. After these formalities, the council decides to visit children at an institution. Misohi explains that they invited them because they believed the children would be thrilled to meet a princess. Just as she mentioned, the children quickly recognize Estella, and she decides to join them in their play. While they are playing, Iki assists in preparing the food, and takes the chance to express his gratitude to Tuka for her help on the Savoie mountain, and during the fight with his sister. Tuka clarifies that he doesn't need to thank her, and Misohi adds that her sister is incredibly strong, pointing out that she even managed to make Tuka remove her glasses. Iki then remarks that he figured out Tuka's technique is designed to enhance her effectiveness when her vision is blocked, which is the reason she removed her glasses. Tuka confirms this by explaining that humans function like living machines, with their movements being signals sent from the brain through tiny electrical impulses. As a lightning user, she can sense these impulses. This is her noble art, reverse sight, allowing her to perceive the enemy's thoughts, enabling her to anticipate and read the traps and attacks that the enemy is planning. Shizuku had prepared herself. Throughout the remainder of the day, Iki finds it hard to stop thinking about Tuka, and Misohi chooses to inform him about the institution they once attended. That place had numerous friends whose circumstances were quite complicated, and the overall atmosphere was not very pleasant. Among them, there was a boy who was nearly killed by his parents, and he turned out to be extremely violent, as he was hopelessly broken. He hurt Toka many times, but she never abandoned him, and thanks to that boy was able to regain his feelings as a human. Toka said that before coming to that institution, she received a lot of love and affection from her parents, and even though they passed away, those memories allow her to keep moving forward. That's why she wants everyone to smile and wants to make them have memories that help them move forward. Misohi says that as Tuka said, she gave strength to all the children in this institution and shows them her. Iki is a great example. Even without a good upbringing, they can grow up happy, as shown by her Raikiri. After spending the day with the kids, Iki and Stella returned to school, only to hear that a photo of them kissing was published in the Yusen newspaper. The press is creating a stir, labeling Iki as a bully and a poor student at Hagen School. Just at that very moment, he suddenly shows up at home to take Iki away, stating it's orders from the committee. Estella is not fond of the idea at all, but Iki reassures her and decides to go with him, asking Alice to look after the girls, even though he promises he'll be right back. Iki is locked up for interrogation numerous times, and rumors in the school start to spread. Iki even has to participate in the selection fights while in that jail, without having the right to speak to his teacher. Stella begins to doubt, feeling she's troubling Iki, but Shizuku helps her realize that Iki was serious about their relationship when they talked in the hut. Savoie understands that he's defending and fighting for her, so she decides to send him a message by giving him a lock of her hair, with teacher Yuri's assistance. This brings back hope to Iki, and one day, he makes the decision to request permission to see his father. He wants to be judged directly by him, considering his father is the director of that place. When they finally succeed in meeting his father tells him that he is aware of his victories in the fights and acknowledges that his opponents are strong, so he has performed well. Iki is taken aback to hear this, as he had believed he was abandoned by the Kurogane family. Iki tells his father that he's trying hard, and even though he's still an F rank, he's no longer that useless one he used to be. That said, he asks him if he will accept it if he manages to win the Seven Swords Festival. Itsuki realizes that Iki thought he was not accepted because he was weak, but clarifies that he is wrong. Why his father confesses that he accepts him. But even if he teaches the techniques to an untalented person, it would not be good for the one who teaches, nor for the one who learns. The worst is delivering a mediocre result with mediocre effort, which is what Iki is doing. These words impact Iki, but Itsuki keeps talking, realizing his father hated him because he expected nothing from him. This breaks Iki, as he just wanted his father's acceptance of his strength. Now, he sees that was a foolish goal when he thought things couldn't get worse. Akaza informs him that his final opponent will be Tuka Tudu, explaining that if he manages to beat him, he won't ask anything else and will be free. On the other hand, if he loses, he will cease to be a magic knight. Upon hearing this news, Tuka talks to Shizuku about Ikki, as his health has been getting worse, but he will most likely fight. Still, she makes it clear that she won't go easy on him either, and will probably take him on with everything she has. Thus, Tuka requests Shizuku to persuade Ikki to give up. Shizuku doesn't respond immediately, and chooses to discuss it with Alice, who simply informs her that this is a decision only she can make. As the day of the fight approaches, everyone eagerly anticipates the match between Ikki and Tuka. Even Tuka's instructor, Nango Torahiru, comes to observe the battle. Yet, Ikki is absent, leading to the announcement that, based on the qualifying rules, if he does not appear within 15 minutes, he will be disqualified. Of course, this is due to sabotage by Akaza, who denied him the right to transportation to school, so Ikki must arrive on foot. In the terrible condition he is in, Ikki loses consciousness at times, and upon awakening is embraced by his sister, who tells him she doesn't want him to fight, but he knows she can't stop him. Suddenly, Ikki is greeted by all those people who believe in him, who encourage him to fight and win with everything he has. Because he has helped many people with his sword, and now they show their support out of gratitude. Among these people, Estella smiles at him, excitedly exclaiming that she became a representative of the school, just as she had promised. Remembering this promise, Ikki begins to move towards Estella and towards the pinnacle of the knights, as it is a promise he cannot break. After hearing that Ikki has arrived at the battlefield, Tuka removes her glasses, fully determined to fight with all her strength. What he has. He is in his worst condition, but still stands before her in front of everyone for the final battle. After exchanging a few words, the battle begins, and Ikki immediately starts using Itoshura, even though it is too risky. Why? He can only use one attack, and if so, he will have to take everything out of it and put it into his next strike. That's his show of respect to Tuka for getting that far. 1. As proof of himself, Ikki gives it his all, and Tuka gets ready to face him with everything she has, planning to use her Raikiri. They both go all out, charging at each other like warriors until they clash swords with all their might. Within seconds, one of the swords shatters, and Tuka falls to the ground, granting the victory to Ikki. He raises a triumphant fist, even though he's bleeding everywhere and on the verge of collapsing. Akaza is in disbelief, questioning whether Tuka might have intentionally lost, but Nango reassures him that she gave it her all, pushing beyond her limits in that attack. Yet, at the final moment, Ikki managed to evolve beyond his own limits. Even with Itoshura, he couldn't defeat Raikiri in just 1 minute, but instead, he went all out with a single decisive cut. Nango emphasizes that this isn't a path an average human can tread. It's the extreme that he managed to surpass. The most extreme is a demon that surpassed the human being. Nene comments that if he had to give him a name, it would not be Ito Shura, but Ito Rasetsu. He goes home completely furious, not wanting to accept that outcome. On the other hand, Ikki is about to collapse, but he forces himself to stand, thinking that he can't fall yet, as there is something he must say. At home he runs towards Ikki wanting to attack him with his gun, but Stella sends him flying effortlessly and runs towards her boyfriend, holding him up. Ikki comes to understand that it is the warmth of Stella's embrace that has truly saved him. And in that very moment, he confesses to Stella his desire for her to become his family. Upon processing his heartfelt words, Stella smiles warmly, and with tears in her eyes, joyfully accepts his marriage proposal. This touching scene profoundly moves the entire audience watching them live. Yet, they remain immersed in their own moment and choose to conclude it with a tender kiss. Soon after, King Vermilion himself contacts Ikki's father after the marriage news and asks him not to involve children in adult things, which Itsuki must accept. Thanks to the king, the whole scandal came to an end, and Akaza was removed from his position. In the end, Alice, Stella, Ikki, and other students are selected as representatives of the Hagon school. The group leader ends up being Ikki, who is appointed by Tuka Tudu. All of the students are in agreement with that decision. When she hands over the flag to him, he confesses that he feels proud from the depths of his heart, and that it was truly good to have been able to fight alongside him. Iki also expresses his gratitude to her for being his opponent, because it was thanks to her that he was able to improve himself. Tuka tells him that winning means carrying the wishes of those who have lost, so she asks him to take all of those wishes to the top of the Seven Swords Festival. Iki gladly accepts her request, feeling incredibly happy to be accepted by everyone, especially by the people he truly loves. And this brings us to the conclusion of today's video. I sincerely hope you enjoyed it. You can find many more summaries like this one right here. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to subscribe and turn on the little bell to stay updated on all the videos. I'm Anizeen, and I'll see you in the next summary. The anime starts by introducing us to the main character, Ikuragane. He is an F-rank blazer who is known as the World